Well, hello everybody. I know, shocking, I'm not dead. So this is a little bit out of the ordinary to people who are kind of regulars here on this channel. And if you're a normal consumer checking out this product, you might be a little bit overwhelmed with information. This is kind of the first product review of this machine specifically, so if you're just a normal consumer stumbling across this, my apologies for how rambly and in-depth it can be. This is generally more kind of a collector or enthusiast-centered channel. So this machine here is a BobSweep PetHair Vision. Now, BobSweep has been around for quite a while in the robotic vacuum industry. I would kind of call them one of the first established Roomba knockoffs, and that's probably not giving them enough credit. They've been around for quite a while for people who wanted a robot vacuum but didn't necessarily want to pay the asking price for a Roomba, or wanted something with more features for the same price. So they've done some interesting and innovative things over the years. They've had a lot of combo robots where they can both vacuum and mop. They've had a machine that had a UV floor sanitizing light, kind of like the Auric Halos. They've done a lot. And I've looked at them in the past, but really I've kind of stuck with Nido machines in the first place because my house layout really kind of needed something that had actual navigation so it could complete the job. I ran into a lot of reliability issues with those and have since moved to Roomba. So I have experience with two of the pretty well-established players. Now, the thing that I've always really admired about BobSweep is they have a very, very good part support network. So if you're looking for a robot that you want to be able to keep for a while and fix should something go wrong, these are generally going to be your robots. Companies like Nido, Samsung, a lot of the smaller kind of knockoff companies, so to speak, as well, really don't have much part support. Roomba does have decent part support in a lot of modular parts, but there are certain things on Roombas that you just cannot get in terms of replacement parts and items, because they don't intend for them to be replaced by the end consumer. Now, with BobSweep, when you go on their site, they have a support section where you can look up all accessories and parts for your model. They list basically every part that goes into building these machines, or at least every major assembly. They're one of the only companies I've ever seen that has things like the circuit board for the machine listed directly on the site should you want to repair or replace the part. So that very much attracted me. Now, this machine here is not full-on BobSweep. From what I can tell, most of their other models are fairly unique to them in how they're built. I don't think they're much of an off-the-shelf design. Now, this machine here is very similar in overall design to a machine from Eufy. It really just kind of has a camera on it. Now, the real reason why I bought this is I've been interested in it for a while. The regular retail price is $8.99, and that's one of the things that I generally really dislike about BobSweep. They always price their machines very, very high MSRP, unreasonably high. You'll almost never find them at that price, but it depends on the retailer that you look at. For that price, this is kind of a ripoff. However, if you're looking for one of these, you can find them on sale pretty easily. So this I purchased from Best Buy for $1.99 when it was on sale near Christmas. And really, to my knowledge, it is the cheapest camera-based smart navigation robot, period. I think the only thing that would come close is some of the floor tracker robots in terms of having actual navigation. Now, this machine is not something that will compete with some of the Nidos or the newer Roomba models. It does not save its map between runs, and you cannot use no-go lines or things like that. You can't tell it where to clean. You can't tell it where not to clean. It just simply goes and runs. And that brings me to my next pet peeve. They make two different pack-in variants of this machine. There's the standard, which is the one that I purchased. It comes with just the basic robot, an extra set of brushes, side brushes, and an extra filter. They also sell one that comes with a mopping attachment and what they call their boundary strips. They're magnetic strips, very similar to what Nido used to use before their no-go lines came in, and you lay them down. Basically over whatever area you don't want the robot to get into. You can cut them down to length and different things like that. However, for something that starts at an MSRP of $900 effectively, it's a little bit ridiculous. All the Nidos have always come with the boundary tape. Every Roomba that pretty much comes out, unless it's selling for around $200 to $300, will have a virtual wall included with it. So it's a little bit of a ripoff for me, in my opinion, that they don't include that at all with the base model, because you are going to need it. There's no home that I've ever seen or been in that won't have something that will trap a robot vacuum. So those are my big pet peeves. Now, what I'm going to do is, this is my current daily driver Roomba. It is an i8, which is the Costco variant of the i7, simply with a bigger battery. The only modification I've done to it is it does have 980 series rubber extractors in it, because I do find that they clean far better and last longer than the ones that come with the i7 originally. So that runs every day. In fact, I just ran it again for a second time today in here. Now, one big complaint that I've seen on the newer Roomba machines that do not have brushes is that they tend to not be able to get hair up quite as effectively as something with a brush. So I figured we'll run this in one room and see how it performs. I have run this before starting this review, so I do have a little bit of an idea of the machine. But I'll kind of show you exactly what it does, how it works, and the issues that I have with it and the things that I like about it. So the machine itself is pretty simple. You've got a dustbin at the back. It also has the vacuum motor in the dustbin, which is a departure from the Eufy machines that are fairly similar to this, as they have it in the machine itself. But I think that's mainly due to the camera spacing. There's also another basically dumb navigation version that I've seen under a different brand name, and I'll post the link in the description to it, that uses a similar setup with basically the same exact vacuum bin. You've got two wheels on each side that drive the machine, along with the caster wheel in the front. Two side brushes, which I personally dislike. They're fairly long and pretty stiff to start out with. If you have carpeted rugs, they tend to get caught on that. Hair does wrap around this brush roll. That's something you kind of cannot get away from unless you're going to a pretty poorly built and poorly engineered shark robot with a brush, or one of the Roborock series. Some of those are pretty decent. It has a pretty similar bin and filter setup to Roomba 900 series. So you've got contacts on the side here that get power to the motor. You've got the motor here in the side of the bin and the filter inlet above. Now, one thing I do like is the filter access, while similar to the Roomba 980 or the 900 series in general, you have two different items of protection. So there is a protection filter screen directly over the fan inlet for the motor. So if the main filter ever gets torn or isn't in place properly, you do have that as a last line of protection. Now, the filter comes with a protective kind of tray with a screen over it to keep large debris out of the filter. And then it's just a pretty simple pleated style filter outside of that. Now the one thing I will say is it doesn't appear that this filter is too efficient. So there are two things I've noticed, and it's not unique to this machine. My Roomba 980 that I had as a daily robot preceding the i8 also had a similar issue. So it appears dust gets past that filter seal. I'm not sure if the suction is lifting that up slightly and breaking that seal, but there is fine dust that ends up right next to the motor. The other issue, I'm not too sure if it's the seal fitment or if it's the filter itself, but I have noticed, even just running this a couple times, that the filter tends to start getting dirty on the back side, the clean side that faces towards the motor, very quickly. It does not seem like this is a very efficient or well-filtering filter. It's definitely not HEPA quality. So if you have allergies or asthma, that's probably not going to be a good comparison for you versus something like the Roombas. The 980, the genuine filters, filter a lot better. You do still get some leakage, but most of it is from the seal around the filter. The newer style machines in the i series are even better. So I am going to get set up here and we will run through the app and start this guy and see how it performs. Alright, so I'm not too sure how well this will come across, and my apologies for the poor just pointing the camera at a phone screen, but I figured I would give you a look. So this is the BobSweep app. You can register your machine here, look at their quick start guide, look at the manuals. You can also shop for accessories and different things like that. So we're going to go down to control right here. Now there's not a whole lot for this machine. So you've got the ability to start and stop it. You can hit the charge button and send it back to its charging dock. You can schedule the machine. You can take a look. Actually, my mistake. I started that, but we'll just let it run and kind of hop out of its way for a moment. One thing I will say is it is a very quiet machine, even with the vacuum motor being in the bin. It's far quieter than something like my Roomba 980. And it can sometimes decide to run in very odd paths. I find it likes this diagonal path, regardless of where the dock is facing. I'm not too sure why, but that is its behavior that I found. With the Roombas, they go in a straight line from wherever their dock is sitting. So back to the app here. You've got the ability to take a look at the map, and this will actually refresh live as the machine moves. It's one of the only camera-based bots that I've seen that do that in their app. Normally, you can only review with Roombas, for example, that are camera-based. You can review the map once the cleaning has been completed. With a lot of the LiDAR-based bots, you can view it while it's mapping. You also have the settings here, so you've got options for software update, and you've also got a cleaning preferences, so you can turn off the voice prompts on this machine. There's a low power mode to save battery that turns down the vacuum power. I always tend to run my machines on full power, so that's not something I really go for. And then edge detection is an interesting feature. So a lot of robots, some of the newer Roombas have this corrected, and I believe also the Nidos. Basically, a lot of machines will have an issue where if they run onto black carpet, their cliff detection sensors will view it as a cliff, and it'll stop or get stuck, especially if the rug has different color patterns. Now, if you live in a home like, for example, I do, where it's a ranch-style home, there aren't any steps, you can turn that edge detection off, and it'll clean your carpeting, including if it's black, flawlessly. Now, it's not something that you want to turn on in a house that has stairs, unless you know you can prevent the machine from ever getting near the stairs so it doesn't tumble down. So that's the app. It's fairly feature limited, but it does have some interesting settings in there versus some of the other machines that I have worked with. Now again, this is a combination robot. I'll cut myself off there. There is an example of what happens if you have area rugs with these edge brushes, with how stiff they are. The machine can really badly trip itself up on that. Now, my Roombas, that sometimes happens from time to time, but the Roombas are smart enough to navigate around that, and their side brushes are a lot more flexible. It does eventually figure it out, but it's not quite the most efficient machine. Now, as I was saying previously, this is a mopping robot. You can get an additional mopping pad for it. Now, I ordered, and we'll try this out in kind of a next video, I ordered a cheaper mopping attachment. The OEM one for this one was out of stock on the BobSweep website unless you bought it in a $50 kit with the no-go boundary strips. Now, a very similar robot to this, I'll link it below in the description and link the mopping bin and pad system, had them on sale on Amazon not too long ago. So I ordered that, so we'll try that and see how it works. I'm generally not a big fan of the mopping and sweeping combo robots. I just don't think they're ideal. But we'll see how that performs. One thing I have noticed with this robot is if you have carpets with a certain type of pile that tend to drag things along. If you have a carpet, for example, that when you're vacuuming with your normal vacuum, it tends to move it either left or right to sway it some. That does seem to throw this robot off its intended path slightly. My Roombas and my Nitos were a lot better at correcting themselves to realize that they were veering off course and stay on it. This, it gets it eventually, but again, it is not quite the smartest bot out there that I've seen. The best summary I have for this machine is it's definitely not worth the $8.99. You're easily into i7 territory, i7 Plus, and you can get a lot better robot. The prices on those have actually come down to the point where they're even cheaper than that. You can pretty much get an S9 for that money in a Roomba. You can get the top-of-the-line Nitos. You can get a top-of-the-line Roborock. There are a lot better options. So as you can see, it's kind of pushed this rug up out of the way and slightly lost its focus. So I'll push that back. We'll see where it goes and how it acts from here. I'll see if this updates any more. This is the first time I've run into this. It's made a pretty much completely incorrect, incoherent, and incomprehensive map, which otherwise I've been fairly impressed with it overall in terms of the maps that it creates. They're not the best, and again, it does not save the map between runs, but they're far from the worst. So it did actually manage to get up on that rug this time. The other thing I've noticed is if you have delicate surfaces, you probably will like this robot. It tends to be of what I would call the soft touch variety. The IR sensor on the front tends to get close to objects and not touch them at all. With Roombas, they more use it to slow down before hitting an object. With this, a lot of times, it will not make contact at all. If you can see how it's moving up against that piece of furniture right there. So if you have a lot of delicate things that you really don't want a robot slamming into with full force, that would be another plus for this machine. So I'm going to let it clean this room here. Now, bare floors, most robots are going to do fine on that, especially ones with a brush. So if it's something you want to see tested, I can. You guys can leave that in the comments below. But for right now, my main concern is how these clean carpets. Roombas tend to be some of the best, outside of kind of fluffy stuff sometimes, like pet hair, but that generally is why I keep Roombas, just because they tend to have the best deep cleaning ability on carpets between the vacuum power that they have and the 2-brush system. So I'm going to cut away. We'll come back once this has basically finished this room here that we're in, and take a look at what it picked up, what it's got in it, and give some thoughts from there. Alright, so I'm going to send this machine back to its dock. So it has covered this entire room. This is its second run edge cleaning the entire room. And it did probably about 5 passes confusedly cleaning along this entire border over and over. In fact, it's heading back towards the dock. We'll see if it's actually going to dock. Maybe it is, but that was a little disconcerting. Okay. No, it's not. So I'm just going to press this pause button and the battery button there. And we'll see if it can find its way back to its dock. The map came out looking like this. So I don't know if that's the source of some of its navigational problems. It seems like it boxed everything into all kinds of different rooms, although it didn't seem to have an issue moving around and cleaning. It was just those edge cleaning sections, really. Now you would think a smart navigation bot that should know where its dock is would be able to figure this out. So let's see. Okay, so we are finally docked. Now, my apologies, I can't tell you right off the top of my head how much time this took. I can leave that in the video just by looking at the timestamps, because BobSweep for this machine, and again, this is their first smart navigation bot, so I can excuse them some things. It gives you no clean report. Doesn't tell you what the battery status is in the app. There's no like percentage meter. There's no graphic indication. It's either it's charging or it's running or it's too low to run. You can't tell how long it's ran for. All you can really see in terms of it cleaning is that map. Now again, like I said, this was cleaned twice today by that Roomba i8 with 980 extractors in it. So let's see what, if anything, this machine pulled out. Now, it's shockingly quiet for a machine with a motor that's a vacuum motor that's in the dustbin, I must say, compared to my 900 series. So really not too bad. This was not perfectly cleaned out. I've run it, but I've been noticing, we just took our Christmas tree down, there have been a lot of like glitter from ornaments just sitting around. So I find it interesting that the Roombas couldn't pick that up, but this did. And then here is what you've got. Now again, like I said, Roombas are generally very good at deep cleaning carpeting, especially with the dual brush extractors. Now, that's not the most powerful Roomba, but that is pretty expensive for a Roomba. So I am impressed that this machine was able to get some dirt up behind. It's not a lot, and the last vacuum to go kind of always wins, whether that's a full-size vacuum or a robot. But I am impressed with that. Now, we do have hair wrap on the brush, which is pretty much expected for something in this kind of price class. But what I come back to is this. This machine is very odd. It has its off days and it has its on days. So one thing that I've noticed is every time I have started this machine from its dock, it has behaved very weirdly in terms of navigation. Anytime that I take it, pick it up, and set it somewhere else and start it not on the dock, it runs pretty much perfectly. Now, I'm not sure if that's my unit, if that's a software issue, or what. I got this machine originally because I was very excited. My favorite vacuum in terms of robots ever was my Roomba 980. And this acts pretty similar, or at least in theory should. It has a camera, it doesn't save floor plans, but it was cheap, it was highly modular, and it could be converted to a mop. While I don't generally go for that, the idea is nice. And for $199, I figured, what's the worst that could happen? However, having used this, I think there are a lot better options out there for most people. Now, if you want a robot with a super soft touch that's camera-based, that has 2 side brushes and an actual brush roll in it, that's probably this guy right here, because you can get it, you can repair it, it's very reasonably priced. It's also one of the lowest profile vacuums I have ever seen. We have an island in our kitchen. You'll get to see that in the mopping video, but it is so low that even my Roombas, which are kind of the next lowest machines, they can't fit under it. They never have been able to, unless it was a 400 series Roomba. Then sometimes they could get under it. This machine can. So for a very specific subset of people, I think this could be great. But generally, the floor tracking robots, whether you are talking about Roborox or you're talking about something like the new Roomba i3 and i4, I got a friend of mine one for Christmas, and to be honest with you, in terms of overall navigational intelligence, that will outperform this handily. It also doesn't need any light. This, I feel like some people may say that low light conditions influence this navigation issue. Now, my Roombas run, 2 different generations of camera-based Roombas run in, and have run in this exact room, generally with far less light than this. Day in, day out, very rarely do I have an issue. Now, this machine, I think, would be even worse in very low light, because if you can see, the camera sensor on this thing is tiny. I mean, I have not seen anything that small since probably an old flip phone camera with about a 1.3 megapixel rating. Now, in comparison, I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see that, the one on the Roombas is not giant, but it's far bigger. So I think that has something to do with it. But again, I think for most people, a floor tracking robot with smart navigation that'll offer the same features will be a better fit. A Roomba i3 or i4, if it's on sale, does not cost much more money. They've been as low as $269 for the i4 version from Costco with a larger battery. If you have an issue where your carpeting and your pet's hair mixed together kind of make a Roomba with rubber rollers unusable, Roborock or Neato would probably be your next best pick. Neato, I have some concerns in terms of reliability with their LiDAR systems. That's why I moved away from them. Roborock, I've heard some difficulties on high pile carpeting or plush carpeting with their brush motors stalling out. So I feel like this robot definitely lands on the do not recommend list unless you're looking for a very specific set of features. And that very specific set of features really was what intrigued me. So if you have any other questions, feel free to leave them below. I'll try and answer them as best I can. If there are videos that you want to see with this bot, let me know and I'll see what I can do. And I will be putting that mopping attachment that I was talking about on this machine so we can run that and see how it goes. Until then, I'll see you guys later, and like I said, any comments, any questions, please leave them below and I'll do my best to respond. Alright, so we are back with the BobSweep PetHair Vision. Now, I have